here's my unboxing of the product. I couldn't be less interested in watching you unbox a product. I think that product boxing is the biggest waste of money in the world. Why do I want a sexy box? I want a sexy part. Like, the box is going in the trash regardless.
100%.
I will say that Sen does have some great wrapping, but that's it.
Welcome to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, where we dive into the high-octane world of market-leading shop owners, shop employees, and automotive enthusiasts from the aftermarket, restoration, performance, and racing industries. So strap in as we take you on an awesome journey with our guests as they share their real-life stories, lessons learned, business advice, and unfiltered insights to help you beat the school of hard knocks. Gearheads and Gasoline, fueling your success.
I'm Barry Alt with Motorhead Digital, and my co-host is the amazing Annette Bauer from Annette Bauer Creative. We're super excited to welcome Kyle Kuhnhausen, the owner of Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. Welcome, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. Welcome.
How's it going? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So do me a favor and pronounce your last name for me.
Kuhnhausen.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I was like, it's a very long last name. It sounds like it's German.
Whatever you say is going to work for me.
Is that German, or is it what?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering about that. Always wondered about that.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you for coming on the podcast. I am a huge fan of yours. I've been following your page for a very long time, and I am always enamored by the work that you do. So we're excited to have you on and kind of pick your brain a bit about how you built your brand and really just kind of how you've perfected your craft. So you've done such an amazing job with that. But as usual, we always kick off our podcast with a little bit of a twist. And that is, we have a single question for you that's a bit unusual. And that is, what is your favorite drink?
Depends what time of day it is. At some point I switched from black coffee to an IPA, and those are my two go-tos.
Nice.
I've got a particular favorite, Boneyard Brewing RPM IPA. That's my number one.
Is that local to you?
Yeah, they're in Bend, Oregon, so just 2 hours away.
Yeah, that was my question too. Is that close to you? Because it sounds like it's definitely a West Coast thing.
We're pretty lucky here in Oregon. We got lots of good breweries.
That is true. And I will say, you guys have some absolutely incredible scenery. I covered the Redwood Rally last year and got to do some traveling up the Pacific Northwest. And it was just like, man, it is just so beautiful up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got lots of trees.
Mm-hmm.
and elevation. It's when I go to other places, it's weird to look and not see mountains. It's
right. It's very cool.
Yeah, we've never been up that way. My wife wants to go to Northern California, Redwoods and all that, up in that area at some point. Up in that's neck of the woods, I think. Maybe a little farther north. Farther north? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like Oregon's about 4 hours from me, so not far.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Kyle, you've been around cars all your life, right? What got you into the passion of building cars and doing that? And one thing I do want to say this, it always intrigued me that what you do, you don't even have a lift.
No, and that's changed. I have a lift. It's not set up yet now. Now I need a building tall enough to put a lift into, and I really got it going on. But
cool.
I basically was born into the industry. My dad ran a mechanical and auto body shop with his business partner since I was born. So I grew up, and they did a lot of drag racing, always doing hot rod stuff on the side. They had real jobs. And then I kind of flip-flopped that later on down the road and turned hot rodding into the real job. But yeah, so I grew up going to the racetrack, following dad around the home shop, and then also cutting my teeth at his business from a pretty early age. And then obviously I drifted into hot rods. It doesn't take a whole lot once you have that in your blood and you kind of see what's going on in the hot rod industry to get really hooked into that. So I didn't start out initially in hot rods. I started out with imports because about the time I was 12, the Fast and the Furious came out, and that's a pretty impressionable age. And that was a pretty, awesome show as a kid. And you just think, man, I want to be Brian O'Connor. How cool is this guy? And so I had a Honda Prelude. I did all the stuff to it. I did my first roll bar, by hand with the Harbor Freight bender in the driveway. We did body work, painted it. I did all my first primer blocking and learning what not to do, what to do. And I would work. I was a pretty diligent worker as a kid, and I always have been because my dad knew how to get me motivated, and that was car parts. So I learned real early, if you want car parts, you work. And then that just translates into bigger and better hobbies and property and stuff at a later age in life. But you just got to work hard and you can get what you want. And so I learned that about age 12, and then I never stopped. So I was there every second I could be at work. I was on the clock working and sweeping floors and doing my best job at it. And I was the boss's son, so I obviously had the stigma to break, which I did pretty early on. Because my dad kind of, you got to work your ass off. And at work, I always, I learned at a young age too, that work's work, home's home. And we're not always the same at both. So you might get your ass chewed a little bit at work if you're not going hard. So it was great. I learned a lot of good stuff growing up the way I did. And then obviously body work and stuff is a much more financially satisfying career for sure. If you're flat rate tech and you're good at what you do. Right. It's also a drive your head into the wall type of job, because all you're doing is fixing broken cars and people that didn't want to wreck their cars in the first place. And then you find out real quick that people are the most picky thing in people's lives is their car. It's not their house, it's their car. So if one little thing isn't like they remembered it, then you got to eat it or be pissed off anyways, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was a great career though. I mean, that if I didn't start doing that, if I didn't start out in collision with a real job, making real job money, I wouldn't have had the platform to actually be able to go off on my own. I would have tried it and failed.
That you learned a lot that you apply there, right? And it's interesting in that we have a trend here. Jesse Vaughn had the same experience in the body shop side, dealing with the customer and on their worst day sometimes, right? And it's interesting having to deal with that, right?
Redline Oil, formulated to win, proven by me.
Redline Oil, formulated to win.
Formulated to win.
Formulated to win,
proven by me.
Formulated to win, proven by me.
Proven by me.
Proven by me.
Redline Oil, formulated to win, proven by me.
I think that's a pretty common segue, right? Like, I think that, like our parents as a whole really kind of instill in us, like, hey, you have to have a job that pays the bills and takes care of your family and does all the right things. So that's, just naturally what we seek is, okay, so how can I, do that? What do I do to take care of those things? And then as we grow, we start like branching out into like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to, kind of follow that creative niche or whatever it is. And in your case, Kyle, like, I love that you come from like the racing side. Like that's my jam. Like that's where I'm at all the time. So, you definitely learn a different work ethic, a different drive, and a different interest in automotive, not taking anything away from like the hot rod side or restoration or whatever, because that all is still very relevant. But it also has a different drive to it, right? So I love that you have that experience and passion, and where you kind of built that from.
Yeah, Yeah, it's and the whole thing is you got to work hard Monday through Friday to go racing on Saturday. And I saw that in my dad and his business partner, and that instilled in me. Now I'm, a non-recovering workaholic since age 12. So drives my wife crazy sometimes.
Same. So I also want to point out, because it really stood out to me that you said this, I haven't heard too many other people, like just in my everyday life or as our guests, really acknowledge something that you brought up, which I think is very important, right? Which is that the person that you are in the shop or the person that you are at the track or whatnot is not always the same person that is at home. And I love that your dad really kind of helped you understand that, like, yeah, I'm going to be hard on you at work because we have responsibilities there. We have people to take care of, but it doesn't change who I am to you when we get home, and that I love you and all those other things, right? Like, I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, that there is division in those two. It doesn't mean that you're two-faced and you're not the same person. It just means that you understand how to disconnect a little bit where it's necessary.
Yeah. It's not to say that it didn't ever spill over occasionally.
Oh, sure.
But, it wasn't like a Orange County chopper situation or anything like that. It wasn't dramatic. It's just, I can't treat you any different than any of my other employees. I'm the boss. I gotta, there's a certain standard to set. And so, I was a workaholic, but I was also a kid who probably had undiagnosed ADHD. So if I might be going down a rabbit hole or something over here. And I was buddies with, all my worker friends were my buddies too. But I'm a 12 to 16-year-old kid, and they're, in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And so I probably heard and learned a lot of stuff I didn't really necessarily need to know at that age. But all the same, it was fun. And it was a family business, and my dad and John, they did it really nice, and they were good to their people. So it's all the same employees still. I mean, they sold very successfully. My dad retired. They sold their business 2 years ago now.
Nice.
Still mostly the same people there. Just they had good people, and they were good to their people. Nowadays, who knows? It was bought by, you know how it goes. It was bought by a much bigger chain of shops. So you lose a lot of that touch, but everybody, I'm sure, still remembers how good they were as bosses and provided for their guys. So
that's awesome.
Hey guys, Jason here with AMD, and you're watching the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. Check this out.
Do you plan, you talk about that, having team members and things like that, employees that you take care of and that you nurture and that they're there with you a long time. You're a one-man shop right now, right? And do you have, I believe
I'm a 1.5 man.
1.5. Your dad helps you in the shop, right?
Yeah, he retired, and now he plays shop with me all day. It's a workaholic family, so I got to keep him lined out and busy because he just needs a direction to be doing something. It doesn't really matter what, something. And usually that's body work on my hot rods for me. So
it's okay. Have you found that dynamic has shifted now? Like when you were younger and he was like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. That now you're like, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do that.
It's 100%, and I love it because it's somewhat payback.
The roles have changed, huh? Right?
I pay him even worse than he started me off on, though. So,
do you plan on growing more? Or do you plan on growing more and adding actual employees, or do you plan on sticking where you're at? Are you happy with that?
I go back and forth on that all the time. So just being involved in an automotive business, not in the same segment, but in the business side of things, I got to see how that works out both ways. And adding employees is great, but I don't want, you don't want to add, sometimes adding more isn't the answer, because then you kind of lose. It just adds a lot more clerical work and adds a lot more insurance and adds a lot more,
adds complication.
Work. basically to run a hot rod shop right and make money like a real business, like a collision shop, you gotta do cookie cutter stuff. You gotta do basic hot rod stuff. You gotta bring in cash flow, which means more cars, which means less of my hands on it. And then pretty soon I'll turn into a desk jockey like any good business owner, doing, keeping all these talented people lined out. I don't think that's what I want to do. Right. I take a lot of pride in, if a car comes to Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, Kyle Kuhnhausen's hands are the ones who are on that car. That's who you're paying that shop rate for. You're not, I'm not having a $40 an hour guy do all this cool fab work for you and bill you out at $140 an hour. Yeah, it's not happening. I'm doing it every hour I'm on that car. When you call, I pick up the phone. So it's kind of a unique thing I've got where the customer only deals with me. I only do the work. And then so it's just I don't want to lose what got me where I'm at. So I don't think I really want to add a whole lot. I have one guy who comes over on Fridays from another hot rod shop in town. He started out just wanting to, hey, I see what you're doing. I want to come learn stuff. And he's been diligent. At first I was like, okay, guy. Well, okay, I'm a nice guy. Come on over. Sure. And then it kind of turned into, hey, you're a cool guy. I like you. And then it's like, okay, well, I can let you do a few things here or there. So, down the road, maybe one employee, just because I can't do everything. But I also don't want the hassle of what it takes to run a business with employees. And I want to really keep it to no more than 2 cars going at any one time, just because at the level I like to do them, that's all there is. Like
sometimes the growth
you can't
is not
split the focus
happy,
more
right?
than that.
Yes. Sometimes that growth.
I don't think I want to grow sideways. I want to grow up. And that way, maybe at some point I can just bill a little bit more for what I do instead of trying to add, a bunch of different builds and stuff. Yeah. I think lots of shops try to get in like all the builds, and then they kind of just do a okay job on some of them, and then they piss off a few guys, and then maybe they do one right. And, it's just hard to manage all that. Some shops can manage all that, but then again, you're just like a collision business, and if you wanted to really make money, you should have just got in that business. So
right.
I'm not a very business owner.
Right. And I like that you want to keep the element that, you're still hands-on in your business. That's what you built your passion off of. And I can appreciate that you recognize where you're at in that process, right? Like that's really important to you. And you understand that from a customer standpoint, that's what they're coming in to pay for, is your work is what attracted them to your business. So handing it off to somebody else in your shop may not necessarily serve what your vision is. So I can understand where you're coming from that.
Yeah. And I hope that younger people getting into the industry hear this and go, you don't have to, just because everybody says growth, make it bigger, add more people is the way to go. It's not always the way to go. So hopefully people will hear that listening to this and go, yeah, I think I'm just going to work on 1 or 2 cars and be an expert at this. And people are hiring me for the expertise that I bring and the quality that I bring. Right.
Yeah. And you got to just think about what's your motivation. And obviously mine's not money. Money makes the world go round. Don't get me wrong. You got to have money. It's weird when you turn your hobby into your profession and that's how you pay your mortgage, because then there are times where you might not love what you're doing because you're burnt out on it, but there's no stopping because this is it. So you chose this life. But at the same time, it's got its benefits. I set my own schedule. I can do, I don't have a boss to report to other than my clients, who I just, I call them the boss man, because like, hey, you're steering the ship. But I'm always the guardrails in the bowling alley. It's like, I'll keep you going straight down the lane here. So you have your ideas, and then, let's collaborate here, and then I'll keep you straightened out on what you really want for your goals here and what's the right choice. I have great I mean, I have awesome clients, and I have awesome relationships with my clients too. I think it's not, I try to not make it too stiff and businessy. It's more they turn into friendships, and we build art projects together. Kind of. That's really all it is. So, so far I haven't had anybody too pissed off at me about it. So.
You can't make everybody happy all the time, right? But you talk about art projects, and one of the things that I had written down was, we met quite a few years ago when I was just reaching out to talk to shop owners and things like that, and I followed you on Instagram forever. And when you talk about art projects and your projects, you come up with such amazing ideas and how you fabricate things. And, I could see you after hours at home. You say you don't take it home, but I could see you going, oh, that's how I'm going to do that. You get out the yellow legal pad and you draw a sketch of it, right? And send it off to get send, cut, send. You get, those guys are all over,
It never stops. The thought process, that doesn't stay at work. That's going at 3 a.m.
Can't turn that off. I know how that works.
It's always going. It's funny. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like when this is what you do and this is your profession, and it's also what you're the most passionate about.
You don't stop.
It's like you just really kind of live in that pocket of hot rod. So I consume so much. I want to know everything about everything in the industry. I look at the internet, magazine, shows, and get inspired by, I might get inspired by something totally different, something on a fighter jet or something on a boat, or just something I see. And then it's kind of like the gears turn and I just, shape these ideas. And I'm also pretty strict on I don't try to be anybody but myself. I do it the way that I like to do it. And I think that comes through, and you see that, you notice over time that some of the best shops have a particular style. And so I try to not deter from my style. Right. You're going to have extremely detailed thing. You're going to have a car that every single fastener has been hand machined, the head on. You're going to have matching, theme throughout, top, bottom. I feel like my meticulousness is kind of what comes through in my stuff. Because you go to SEMA, and SEMA is kind of the mecca where all this stuff converges because it's the biggest, baddest show. And you look at the stuff that like Mike and Jim Ring are bringing. You can tell Ring Brothers car from half a show booth away, right? And that's kind of what you want to do. That's your calling card, is when people can tell that it's your work with no logo on it, then you've made it. So
Isn't
still
that
working towards
crazy?
that, but
Today's podcast is sponsored by Motorhead Digital. Motorhead Digital are digital marketing experts for your automotive aftermarket, restoration, performance, race, and restyling shop. They help you supercharge your shop's website, social media, and entire online presence to attract those badass customers you're looking for. Check us out at motorheaddigital.com.
So how is that creativity? You do a lot of social media. Instagram, you got 166,000 followers. When did that really take off, and how does that affect your business? I know I asked you two things at once, but let's talk about how you got into social media and really got going on that, and then address that other piece.
I got into it because I really liked sharing my work, my passion. Yeah. I don't know, probably a decade ago was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I can put up a picture of this 240Z I'm working on, and these people like it. That's really cool. I like that because I like what I'm doing too. I wouldn't put it up there if I didn't like it. I like what I'm doing. It's just part of the game. Is you look at some of the best athletes in the world and their mindsets in these championship games. They know they're the best. It's and not to say that I'm the best or anything. I'm not by a long shot. But I know that what I do resonates with people, and I like that about it. Yeah. And so it's just kind of an outlet to share that and get some of that creativity out. And sometimes it kind of helps pull some of that creativity out by putting together this reel where I can look at my whole process. And it's like, well, how do I even how do I even share this process? If I could afford a videographer to do YouTube stuff to just follow me around and actually catch like my whole process, I think it would probably be a gold mine, but I'm not there yet. I do little things all the time, and I'm just like, if I could, I can't, I'm in the moment. I've thought about it. I've tried it. I'm not somebody that can stop, set up 3 cameras. I'm in it. Like I'm building this thing. I can stop and whip a iPhone out and snap a picture, a quick little snippet. But if you could really like bottle up what I do on a day-to-day basis, it would be like nothing out there as far as I'm concerned on YouTube or something like that. But it's just like a sounding board. I love to throw stuff on Instagram and see what comes back. And it didn't really take off until probably SEMA 2018. That's when everything like converged and that was just for a first debut at SEMA, I had kind of an otherworldly experience. I didn't deserve as much as I got there. And then it just kind of snowballed, and I think that people understand that I'm not in it for the wrong reasons. I'm in it for the right reasons, and I stay true to what I do. And I feel like that's why it continues to grow, because I don't do a lot of look at me stuff. I just show my work. I like to just share my work. So I like to not be too big of a part in it. I don't want to be like the face of the page. I want my work to speak for itself. And so if I can continue to do it in that way, where it's not, that terrible influencer word, nobody likes that, but you can tell when people are like that. And it's like, all that's really cringy to me. I don't want that ever. But if I can have some influence and also, benefit a little bit financially, beautiful. I mean, that's a perfect thing. And I will only always sell or endorse products that I truly use myself and enjoy and think will bring value to people's hard-earned money. If I wanted to really make some quick cash, I always have a million, emails in my inbox of people that want to shoot me a quick $1,000-$3,000 to, push their product. But it's a long game. And if I go taking all that stuff, then I'm going to lose all the good things that I built up over the past decade there. So it's hard to refrain, because like, oh man, I could really use that money. I could throw that right. I could get the dry sump system I need for this dart so that I could, push forward on my own project. But, if I do that in 5 years, when a real company I really want to work with is in a spot and wanting to work with me, they might pass on that because they're like, this guy will just kind of take whatever he can get. So it's an interesting thing navigating all that social media partnerships and stuff like that, and doing it in a way that's integral, and also, making a few bucks and doing right by your following. So
did they come to you? Yeah,
I don't know to answer your question, Barry, I don't know that it ever took off or made it yet, because it still needs to grow considerably if I want to do all the things I really want to do with it.
Right. But you're at a juncture right now where you can monetize your Instagram and your channels, right? Which helps you financially, right? So, I mean, you have enough really incredible content that you put out. And although you may not necessarily be strategic about it in the big plan of it, the things that you put out are very impactful. And I 100% guarantee you inspire lots of people, because I know I am not at all a fabricator. I am not a welder in any way, shape, or form, but I can grind. However, every time that I look at your stuff and some of the creations that you have, I'm just inspired myself. I'm in awe, and I love that you're a part of our industry, because it's really important for us to have people like you who know how to do these things, right? Like, I work on a race car and we have chassis work done all the time, and we have different things that break and different things that we need to fix, whether at track or at the shop. And having somebody who has your skill set is not as prevalent as people might think.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that you come up with,
and I think, go ahead, Barry.
I said I've been like Annette, I'm just amazed watching your creativity and some of the things you design and you build. And I was like, it just comes out of your head. And I just don't, it's just really cool. I wish I had that talent, right? Based on your recommendation, I picked up a MIG welder. I've used it once. I still haven't 100% figured it out, right? But seeing that and inspiring others to think outside the box is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, in your defense, Barry, I just bought a new MIG welder too, and I still haven't used it either because I usually just TIG.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But no, I really appreciate the praise, and I couldn't tell you where it comes from. I think it's just being in that pocket. This is what I live this life. I love, like, what I do is me.
Right.
All my work is just my passion in a tangible form for what I'm doing. So
Today's podcast is sponsored by Annette Bauer Creative. At Annette Bauer Creative, we understand the power of visual storytelling in transforming brands and driving growth. From capturing the essence of your products and services to showcasing the unique solutions you offer, our professional imagery and reels help bring your brand to life. Fuel your brand and ignite your vision at AnnetteBauerCreative.com.
I think the best part about what you do is that you're truly authentic in what you do and who you are, right? And so that naturally attracts people to want to follow you, want to see what you're doing, want to engage with you, want to reach out and say, like, hey, I want to work on a creative build with you or whatever. Because like you said, you are staying true to who you are. And loving what you do is a big part of how we succeed. And sometimes we don't always recognize that success because we're just like, hey, this is just what I do. And this is just what I love. Right. And so it doesn't really feel like that, oh, I've made it moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's there's only two keys to growth on social media. I'm not a social media coach. I didn't work for that number really. But what I have learned is that all you need is good quality content and passion. That's all you need. If you do those two things and you stay the course and I probably have over 2,000 posts in the last decade or so. And, lately I haven't been great because I have a new daughter at home. And I figured that my time where I used to do all this social media stuff is now time with her.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out a new time schedule to actually get all this content out. But, I've got a huge backlog, which is great. So it's a funny industry. I laugh all the time about it because people look at that number, the 166 or whatever it's at. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily pay the mortgage, guys. That doesn't, if I could turn that 5 million views on this 55 Chevy taillight into dollars, we'd really be talking. But, there's some good partnerships. There's things that I really love. I love the brand Send Cut Send, and I loved them before we ever worked together. But that's just a good people, a great service. That's something that truly took my business to a new level and my skill set as well. Without them, I don't think I would have advanced as quickly as I have in the fabrication world. And so I love to spread that, like, naturally. It's not like paid per spread stuff. It's just, seriously, you need to try this. And so when I can align myself with brands like that, where I'm true, like I am an absolute expert at Send Cut Sending stuff. I do it almost every day. And I would do that whether I worked with them or not. And I would tell people that whether I worked with them or not. And there's brands that I don't work with that I do tell people because it's just what you should be doing. And then maybe someday we can, I like to build up goodwill. I've never worked with a brand whose stuff I didn't buy organically myself first. And nowadays it's my common practice. If I want to work with a brand, I might buy that stuff first. And if it's good, I might even give a little snippet of, hey, this is good stuff. You should check this out. And then, hopefully there's some goodwill there in becoming somewhat of a familiarized with the brand. And if they're in a good spot and I'm in a good spot, maybe we can make something happen. But I'm not doing it just for the partnerships as much as I'm doing it to just kind of market my business. I've found one of my best clients, has come kind of from the Instagram, seeing what I do and, wanting me to be doing that. So it's you never know who's watching. It's got so much promise. Like I could post this video and you never know when the phone might ring and you create it. So I just try to get as many, branches out there as I can, or roots out there as I can, so that eventually something comes back. And
well, you bring up a really good point. A good buddy of ours and our sponsor, Red Lion Oil, Mark, is a very big advocate for saying, like, hey, if you're going to come at me with a request for a sponsorship, you better be using our product first, right? So, like, don't just come in and say, like, hey, I want you to sponsor me, or like your circumstance, right? Like, hey, I want you to use my product, or I want you to use whatever I do. Well, that's great, but you should be seeking that on your own before you come to me with anything. And being able to advocate for other brands does come back to that authentic, like, hey, I've used it, I can stand behind it, I believe in it, and not being just a yes person, right?
People watching this, younger people that are maybe consider themselves influencers, or trying to show what they do, like you do, and get in front of people on social media for your sponsors and partners and things like that. Did they come to you, or did you go to them? And one of the things for people watching this is how should somebody think about? We talked about using their products. I think that's ultimately the best way. Use their products. I'm not going to say I love this and not use it. That'd be lying, right? How should younger people think, or anybody looking to go and partner with a company, think about it?
Yeah, there's some really good questions you bring up, and I've got some good input on them too that I think can be quite helpful, because it's a bit of both. So getting going, to preface the whole thing, I think I would say that social media kind of killed brand loyalty, and our industry is built on brand loyalty. Yeah. So if you have a partner, that's your partner. The grass is not greener. It's a relationship, and that's how you create a strong partnership.
Right.
So when I have a partner who's been with me for a while, it doesn't matter what their competitor could throw at me, I won't bite. It's Send Cut Send. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of spreading the gospel of Send Cut Send. And I know that because I've had two of their biggest competitors try to steal me away, say, hey, we'll give you X money and parts and stuff. And I won't even entertain it, because I'm so not interested in turning my back on the people who had my back from the get-go. And it's the same, like Radium Engineering is a fuel products company. They're out of Portland, Oregon, pretty close to me. I think they were my first sponsor, because I took the Datsun I had built to a local show, and one of the upper guys there saw it and was like, hey, we'd love to work with you. And that just happened organically, where they reached out to me, and I didn't even know how to handle it, because it took me a while to kind of ask the big question. And it was like, oh yeah. What we said, we want to work with you. So, a couple of days later, Fuel System showed up before SEMA.
Nice.
So the best ones, generally they've reached out to me, the ones that are lasting. Sometimes I will reach out, like I haven't done it yet, but I have a company in mind that I wanted to reach out to, because I'm revamping my home shop here so that I can do more, have a better backdrop for content, because where I actually do my business that's dirty work. It's always got dust, and it's just not a space that's sexy. This is my home shop. It can be a little bit more of a sexy shop, but still maybe a little functional, and I can work on my dart here and there on weekends. But I saw this product, and I'm like, hey, that's really cool. And so I bought $400 or $500 worth of their product. And I was like, I like this stuff. So if this is something I want to endorse. And so now I'm trying to approach things more that way. And only go after stuff that I want to endorse. There's stuff that it's like, well, I'm past the point where you know, unless you give me a couple bucks, you don't get your sticker on the wall, because it's just, I'm there. I did my 10 years of earning that, and I've got people's interest, and I've got a decent followership of people who are loyal to what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to finish this damn dart, you know, and that takes money, and that's money that can't be the money that pays the mortgage and buys diapers and all that stuff. So,
what you're doing now
only
brings
sponsorship
value.
stuff can do that.
Yeah,
it does. Absolutely. You know, and so I'm trying to figure out how to do the lifestyle I want to do with less strings. And the only way to do that is to not have clients, but have people that you're adding value for a couple bucks. And so I'm trying to experiment with some of that. But again, I only want to do it with people that I really feel like I can be a good ambassador for, a genuine ambassador for. So that's where it gets hard, because sometimes they're not necessarily looking at me yet the same way I'm looking at them. They'll come around, I'm sure, but you know, I gotta debut the 66 vet I've been working on for the last 5 years before, you know, anybody's probably going to jump on that train. But to get going, generally they'll reach out to you when it's time, you know, because companies want all different levels of this marketing, from 5,000 followers up to 150 followers to 500,000 followers. Mm-hmm. There's different levels of this marketing. So, you know, you might get as you go up the hill, you know, you might get a percentage off, you might get free product, you might get free product and a check. You just got to work your way towards that. But I'm kind of a promoter of, you gotta, when you're starting out, shameless self-promotion. Nobody's going to see nobody's trying to push your stuff. So you just got to you got to get it out there. Like working up to SEMA 2018, when I hadn't debuted any major cars, or, you know, had the marketing power of SEMA behind me, or, you know, I'm just a guy in a garage, moonlighting a hot rod business, building a Datsun. It's shameless self. I'm the only guy promoting myself. So you really got to promote the hell out of yourself. And that's how you get, you know, eyes on you. That's how you go to SEMA and win Battle of the Builders, Young Guns stuff, and get in the magazines and all that stuff. Is like, you can't sit in a corner and expect people to just come to you. You got to go to them until they start coming to you.
Yeah, it's a grind.
You got to give them a reason.
You have to understand that there's a lot of hard work. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to continue to keep at it and have faith in yourself that something will happen eventually. You just have to work it, right? And in this day and age, a lot of people want success overnight, and that's just not reality, right?
Yeah, it all goes back to that. What's your motivation? And if your motivation's anything but doing it for the reasons that you like to do it, you're not going to succeed. If your motivation is, I want to try to make money and have a bunch of followers and be an influencer, you're not going to succeed, because nobody wants to follow that. Well, what's in that for people? Like things that really catch people's attention on social media, give them education, and give them eye candy. So I try to do a bit of both. It's like, here's you know, the back of this dart with push rod suspension, but also here's how I designed that from start to finish. Right. You know, that's the stuff that really takes off.
We know you don't want to miss an episode, so don't forget to smash that bell so that you get notified of every new episode. Click that like button, leave us a comment, and share with your people. And visit us repeatedly. We love it.